Hello everyone, my name is Claire Haillot and welcome to my Applique demonstration from sewing mode to embroidery. So I'm going to try to give you all my secrets on how I go about embroidering my designs. And so I'll give you a few examples and we'll work from there. And don't hesitate to write down in the comments where you're from. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, so here we go. These are a few samples that I have at hand, and so they were all done. These two were actually done in sewing mode. So this one was a Halloween bag where I got the bag actually on the Creative 8 design in the Creative 8 design catalog, and I actually just did a moon, and they were actually cut using the memento. So that was a very fun project to do for Halloween for kids. And then this one is I did to create a wall hanging for winter. And so let me just show it on the bigger screen here. So it's actually a huge snowflake that was cut on the Memento machine. So it took only 2 minutes. And then just doing the sewing in sewing mode on my machine. So those are a few samples. And there's also one way that I did it here. Let me show you. This is an embroidery an applique that I did actually in embroidery mode. So I'm going to touch base on how we can do it through embroidery mode if you have an embroidery machine back home. So there are several ways to go about. So let's start at the beginning. What do you need to do some appliques? So appliques are actually pieces of fabric that you add onto a background base. Now you need to have a double interface. No, that's not the word. You need to have something for the fabric to glue onto your background. So double facing interface stable. I forgot the word. Sorry. Double-sided adhesive. To have whichever brand you prefer that will definitely do the trick. Usually there's like paper on both sides of that film that is sticky and that will fuse with heat. So follow the instructions on whichever brand you choose. There's usually one side that peels off right away, so you can stick that to the back of your applique fabric. You can then cut out the part that you need and then unpeel the second layer of paper, and then you are able to glue it onto your background fabric and set it with heat. All right, so that is not really the goal of I don't want to go into too much detail here because I really want to spend more time on figuring out how to do that satin stitch and make it look nice on your machine. So I'm using the Creative Icon 2, but the trick would work for most of your PFAFF machines. I'm going to try to troubleshoot at the same time. First rule of thumb, whenever I'm doing appliques, I always have a blank project, the same fabric that I'm using in the project. I'm going to have one so I can test it, because no matter how many times you've done appliques, you always have to go back to the basic before you start on the project. And you need to test your threads. Always have stabilizer also, and you need to test the whatever stitch up you want to do. You got to test it. Don't go straight away onto your project. You could have a few disappointing moments. So those are my trick. So I always have that, and I always have these pieces of, they're actually sheet of fabric with different shapes on them, so I can practice my just refresh muscle memory, remember how I need to move and how do I need to. So I'm going to show you all that today. I'm also going to get into tapering when you have points, and all of these tricks depending on what machine you have and how you can go about it. So those are the things. And first thing though is I'm going to talk about the feet, because if you are trying to do appliques and you get this big bulk of thread and it's stuck in front of your foot, that is the one thing we can resolve right away for you guys. So if it's ever happened, you can write it down and tell me about it. So basically, your machine comes with the standard OA foot. Okay, so we tend to use that when we're sewing, but when we are going to be doing applique, that foot will no longer work. Let me show you how with a close-up. So let's go back here. Let me zoom in just a little bit. So this is the regular A foot. Oh, there's a lot of, the lighting isn't too great here. And my apologies. Oh, there, it fits. It's fixed. So this is the regular OA. I'm going to turn it around and you're going to see that the sole of the foot is really flat. There's a little indent right after this opening for the stitch, but then it lays flat. And that's why your satin stitch gets all caught up in the bottom. So this is the 1A foot, all right? So if you notice in your machine, you have the 1A foot. And the 1A foot is actually the applique foot that comes with your machine. You'll see in the bottom, you see here that tunnel? So that opening allows for your satin stitch to move through the foot with a little bit more ease, all right? So those are usually standard on a machine, but I want to go just a little bit further with all of this and show you some other feet that you might find. So I have here, this one is the 2A, so still an opening in the back, but you'll notice that it's no longer an IDT. And then I have this one, which is the 8 foot. Again, not an IDT, but it still have a fairly nice opening in the back to do any appliques. So those, I believe all these feet come with the icon too. And so when do I know if I should use these instead of another foot? Well, I'm going to be able to see that information when I select a stitch on the machine. So let's go here in the satin stitches. And let's say I select this stitch and I'm going to close. You see here, my recommendation is actually, let me open this up so you can see just a little bit bigger. And so I'm going to zoom in because you need to see that. So here it says that the recommendation is the 2A and of course stabilizer. So it is giving you an idea right there which foot to use, which one will be best for that stitch out. Okay, so the 2A is actually this one right here. So this is the foot that I would be using for that particular stitch. Now I'm going to go just a little bit further and show you a few other feet that I kind of like that, you know, they most of the time they do not come with your sewing machine. So this is the sewing star. And so it actually looks a lot like the 1A, all right? So front and back, you'll see that it is similar. And it's actually, it is the same one. It's just that, well, almost. What happens is that PFAFF has removed the plastic covering here and has just kept that little bar to hold the fabric down to make sure that everything lays nice and flat so you can see what you're doing. So that is one of my go-to feet when I am doing appliques. The ones I also love, it's a tie. It's my clear open foot, open toe foot. So I like the clear one and there's the metal one. So you can go, I kind of prefer the clear one because I get to see my fabric underneath all the time. But you'll notice that we also have a nice opening. The tunnel there is nice and wide, and it really helps me to create my appliques. Now, if all else fails, you know, it does happen sometimes that you create appliques and you use a very thick thread and it can get stuck underneath. My last resort is actually the candle wicking thread. So if you haven't tried candle wicking yet, you need to get those special technique stitches on your machine. You need to find them if you have them and play with them. You do need that foot to do so. And you'll notice, so it has a nice opening. You can see where you're going and look underneath. See how high that tunnel is? So if you are using this foot, you are definitely not going to have any thread jamming underneath. You'll be able to produce a very nice applique satin stitch. All right, so those are my secrets for the stitch and to have a beautiful stitch, satin stitch. I'm going to use the clear open toe foot for the presentation moving forward. So let's go to the machine and let's set it on here. Oops, sorry, my hands out of the way. And so there is now the foot that's on the machine. Now, the next thing that we are going to do is select that, how can I get the, a lot of people would tell me when I would give class, I just want a plain satin stitch. So here's a trick to find it on the Creative Icon 2. I'm going to go into Utility, and I'm going to select the stitch number 12. It kind of looks like a lightning stitch, and that is my preferred stitch to do applique. So the reason so is that it's actually going left to right. When it's stitching, it's a straight line, and then it crosses over. It goes again left to right, crosses over. As opposed to those zigzags where it constantly moves forward. This one will stay put, go to the other side, and move forward. That's the stitch that I want when I'm doing my satin stitch. So when I go here now and I look at it, depending on the thread thickness, the thread weight, you might want to play a little bit with the editing. So I tend to reduce the length so that I can have a fuller effect. So I've tested in advance on my machine and with the thread that I have, and I'm going to go to 0.4. And so the stitch width right now is 6 millimeter, and I am going to keep it at that width for now. If I would be doing my own personal project, I will probably reduce it to 4. But right now, just for the moment, I'll see as I start with the different projects. I'm going to stick with 6 millimeter width, because I want to show you something here that we don't normally think right away. So right now I have 6 millimeter width, and you can see that the design is positioned in the middle. What does that mean? So let me go back here. I am going to just make a test again on this piece of paper, and I'm just gonna use this pen to mark it as if that actually, let me just do, I'm not liking the way that you are seeing the information. So I'm just going to change the view of my camera so you see a little bit better. And here you go. So I'm in a line. So let's pretend my fabric is on this side. This is the raw edge of the fabric, and the background is on the right hand side. So if I'm going to start doing my applique, right now the applique, the stitch is centered in the middle, which means that, you would tend to think, okay, not a problem. I'll just put the line in the middle and start sewing there. But if you do that, that means let's just do a test run. Let's just start sewing. There's no better way than showing the sample. So here we go. In doing this, let's go to the other camera. You'll have a better view. So when you do this, you have the zigzag is 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters to the right and 3 millimeters to the left. So you're not you have a lot of area in that zigzag that is on the right hand side in the background. So it will create it's not ideal. What I like to do when I am doing any type of applique, I want the right hand side to be really at the edge of my raw fabric, because I want that width to be over the raw edge, so that if I happen to wash my quilt or whatever I'm doing, if there is any fraying to happen, the fraying will remain underneath the satin stitch. So now, because I put 3 millimeter here, it doesn't do anything. So the fraying might go further away and be seen after a few washes. Okay, so that's my personal preference. I'm explaining why I don't like that. And I'll show you how I can counter that problem. And it's by toggling right here in the bottom. If I toggle here, you're going to have the position of that stitch. And if I press the plus sign, you're going to see that that stitch moves to the right. Okay. And at one point, you see, it's like the machine is giving me these sounds saying I can't move it any further to the right. So that's exactly where I want it to be when I'm doing my appliques. So let's move to this camera so I can show you again. And the needle is actually positioned on the right hand side. So that is perfect. And I can see that it's right by that red light. And so the, not the red light, sorry. It's on the right of the foot. And so let me just show it this way so it's a little bit better. Here we go. You see here you have a red line in the middle and the red line on the far right. So you know that when the needle is positioned completely to the right, it is in that area. So you're going to want your raw edge to be sitting just beside that red line. So remember, those red lines on these feet, they are there for a reason, and they are there to help you out. So I am sitting the foot, the right hand side of the needle exactly. No, actually, let me just rephrase that because I'm not making any sense. Sorry, guys. So let me change views here. That raw edge is aligned. Sorry, that raw edge is aligned to the red line right here. I'm going to bring my needle down so I know that it's sitting exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to bring it back up, and I'm just going to send it. So it's going now. Okay, sorry about that. Now it's at the far left, and that's where I'm going to actually bring it back down, bring it back up, and I'm going to grab that bobbin thread, and I'm going to hold it and bring that needle back down, and it's just a hairline away from my raw edge, and I am holding the two threads together so I can start my satin stitch. And as it's doing it, the tension is perfect right at the beginning, and I can just move and continue along. All right, so I'm cutting the thread because it's just a sample, but it's just to show you this is how I always do my my satin stitches. So let's go to that other camera so that you guys can see better. So you see here how I'm just perfect at the edge, and everything is inside the applique. This is how I want my appliques to be. Okay, so now that I've kind of given a quick look, I am going to go back and continue now with real fabric. So we did the test. I know the tension is good. One thing that I forgot to say, I use the fabric, the thread of my choice on the top, but in the bobbin, I'm going to use a lighter, so if I have a 40 weight thread or 50 weight thread on the top, I'm going to go with the 60 weight thread in the bobbin. I want it to be thinner, and I want that I want the top thread to always go in the bottom. So if I need to, I'm going to reduce the tension on my machine to make sure that the top thread always goes down to the bottom, and so I don't need to have both colors on each side. Again, 60 weight thread, white or gray, something that's a blender. If that's what I use in the bobbin thread. Okay, so let's go now with one piece of fabric, because there's a little bit. I want to talk about how to do corners, and well, let's start with the circle, because in order to get a beautiful, even appliques, that you always need to be moving and shifting within the, uh, uh, you need to be doing the movement and not stopping, because if you stop and you move at the wrong, this is where you get all these like edgy, the design that the satin stitch that nobody wants. All right, so let's start with the circle, and I'm going to start by reducing the speed on my machine. Okay, and then I'm going to change camera and go right here. No, sorry, right here. So again, we know about the positioning, so I'm just going to bring it down here. And so on the right hand side, I know the needle will be down just in the background. And I have stabilizer underneath. I have my applique here. So now I am holding, sorry, I'm going to get my big fingers out of the way. I am holding that top thread, bringing the needle down and bringing it back up. I am going to grab that bobbin thread, bring the needle down, and just hold it as I'm doing the first stitches. So I'm going to, all right, so here we go. I've stopped it now, and I want to just make sure that every time I stop, I need to make sure that the needle is at the far right. If you stop and pivot while the needle is in the middle of the applique, this is when you get that edgy look on the end. So you got to make sure that every time you want to stop or pivot, you need to make sure that you stop with the needle on the right. We can just start sewing. See how I am not going fast. It's not a race. Now, I've stopped on the left. I do feel I need to pivot because the circle is going rather fast. So that's what's fun about having a fast machine. If you just tap your foot pedal, the needle will go back up. You tap once more and the needle goes back down. So you can do it using the pedal so your hands are staying on your project, or of course, you can do the same thing by moving the needle up and down right here. So you choose whichever design, whichever way you prefer. I tend to like to use the pedal. So now that the needle is back to the right, this is where I am going to pivot. I'm exaggerating because I want to make sure that you see it. And this is a sample, so it's not a real project. So you see I've pivoted and it's bringing the stitch, it's going over a little bit of the applique stitch, the sign stitch that I've done on the left side. And that is fine. It's not a problem because I'm just continuing. So again, I'm pivoting and I'm continuing. And you can also just move it along, and just move it along and doing it just one little piece at a time. Just keep on moving forward. But every time you pivot, you need to make sure that you're pivoting while the needle is on the right hand side. Okay. And doing this slowly will allow you to make sure that you have a nice smooth effect. I tend to find that the my appliques, my stitches, I would really bring it down to 3 millimeters per half on this design. But see how I'm pivoting, and I'm always making sure that I'm pivoting when the needle is on the right hand side to avoid that design rough uneven edges on the right hand side. And actually, I decided to use black thread because I really wanted to show you the effect of how it looked. But it's actually good that because usually you're gonna pick a thread that is usually the same color as your applique. And doing that will allow you to make sure that nobody really sees the the rough side of on the left side, you know. Um, and however, on the right hand side, you will have a contrast with your background and your thread color. So this is where you want to make sure that the design is nice and smooth. However, on this, because I've used black fabric, the black fabric is actually, let me just show you to you here. Uh, the black fabric is really showing on this side also. So you see the nice edge on this side, and you see that it kind of sometimes a little bit uneven on the inside, but if that was yellow fabric, nobody would see it. We'd see though that there's a nice smooth effect on the edges here. All right. So that's the first learning. The first thing to learn. Take your time. Take it slowly. Practice, practice, practice. All right. Now we're going to show you how to do corners. So actually, maybe a square is easier because it's a straight line until you get to the corners. So again, just remember, and I always tend to say that to everyone, when you stop before you do anything, just try to think, where will the needle go next? And that usually gives you a good idea of how to handle it. So let's go now to, actually it's a rectangle. So same thing again, I'm just going to move the needle to the left hand side so I can bring that bobbin thread back up. Up, it didn't go, so that's here. I'm grabbing my bobbin thread and then bringing the needle back down, holding that in place, and I can start my applique. Now the idea, the trick for that corner is I'm actually going to stitch all the way out to the edge here and leave my needle on the outside, on the right hand side. Let me just get there and I will explain. So I'm sewing. Slowing things down. So I really want to go when I do not see. All right, so I am exactly where I want to be. I'm at the far edge. Actually, I'm going to go one more. And it's this time here. Let me do. I just want to go one more up front. So I'm just going to use my needle up and needle down. Could have used the pedal. So I'm at the, let me go back here. I'm at the far end, and I know that my next move, the needle will go back to the left. So before I do that, I am going to pivot my rectangle so that when it pivots back, it pivots inward and we can continue. So it's going to go above the sign stitch. You don't want to push it through because you don't want to have an uneven stitch. So trust the process and just continue on. See, I just want to show you here, if I would stop on the left-hand side and pivot, it would go back to the right-hand side. Just show you what would happen. See that your corner would not have been cut. So let's just go here. So just trying to see which angle you would see this. There we go. So that angle has not been covered, as opposed to this one, you have a nice corner. So here's another option that I want to talk to you guys about. When you have your design that is on your machine, check for this icon right here. That icon is tapering. So let's just go and open that up. You will see that it gives you option. You can just taper the beginning or taper the end or taper both sides. So I'm going to say I want to have a 45-degree angle tapering at the beginning and at the end. Actually, yeah, why not? So let's just, um, I'm actually, yeah, I'm changing my mind. I'm going to start by saying I want to end with a 45-degree tapering. So let's see how, oh, yeah, no, it starts. So I don't want multi. I just want it at the end of 45 degree. So if I close that icon, oh, didn't catch it, end at 45 degree. And oh, multi, I need to put it back to off, beginning off, and end, I want a 45-degree angle. So let's just continue here. And so now the only thing you see is that reverse button right here, which means that it will begin to taper when I press the reverse button either here on the machine or here. So let's have a look on the using the machine. And so here and do the same thing. I'm not here, grab thread, to start sewing. And when I get close to my edge, I would say 7 millimeter, I'm pressing reverse. Did you see that it actually gave me a perfect 45-degree taper? So let's see, you can see it up close. There it is, perfect. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back here and say that I want a multi 45 degrees. So I want it to begin at a 45-degree angle and end when I press the reverse button to do the same thing. So let's go back here. And if I select start, it's going to start my applique and a miter. And when I go to the end, so it's a 45-degree angle. If my width is 7 millimeter, I need to begin the mitering 7 millimeter before the end. So now it's a good time to take your time and really, you can mark it before, and then, whoops, press the wrong button. Here we go. That's what happens when we're live. So I'm going to press start and reverse all at the same time. And there we go. So we have another miter corner. I'm just going to stop here. We are on a row. And so I'm going to zoom out and show you this beautiful, let me get it. See that beautiful miter corner that we did? So it's as simple as that. Just get accustomed to your machine and you'll be able to do it. So again, let me just show you that icon. So as soon as you have that triangle popping up, this is when you can go and decide which type of tapering. Just make sure that if it's not, if you don't want a multi, you need to turn it off and then go and pick the one that you would like to have. Okay, so that's the secret to tapering. So if you don't have tapering, then you can definitely go about it. You can reduce the width. Again, just by reducing right here, you can play with it. And I'm not, I'm toggling. So that's, okay, so let's stick with the width. You can just go every 2-3 inches and reduce that. So you can do your own personal tapering if you do not have tapering on your machine. But I just really love using it. And so let me show you with the, if I were to do that leaf right here, I'm going to show you how to do a tapering without the tapering effect if you don't have it on your machine. So I'm just going to make sure that I pull the background thread from the bottom inside. You want to pull that when you are on the fabric and not on the edge, just so that you can tie your knots and throw them under your background fabric afterwards. So here we go. I am going here and let's just start. I'm pressing and up. Sorry. I am going to go back into the width. I'm going to reduce the width to 4.5. Reduce it to 5. Reduce it to 4.5. Reduce it to 4.2, and so on. I'm just continuing on and reducing it. And I stop when the needle is up farthest to the right. So when I pivot, it's going to go over. So I'm just going to do that, going over. And now I can start bringing that width back up. Here, and let's take a look at what I did. See how I was able to create a mitered point without having the miter, without using the miter in the sewing machine itself. So just by reducing it and then increasing it. So you can definitely do that on any of the machines and just play with those angles. So take your time, and there's definitely ways to be able to do beautiful appliques. All right. So now let me just see. I've shown you how to go, just to make sure when you're going into a circle, pivot always with the needle on the background so that you have a nice smooth finish. I showed you how to do corners. I showed you how to do point, how to use tapering, and also I showed you how to play with the width and to play with the length depending on the thread that you're using. Again, I'm using 0.4 in stitch length. I have a 50 weight thread. If I had a 40, I would probably increase it. So and then you have some of the stitching, you can also play with density. Let me show you that quickly. I think that's important. So I'm going to this camera, and so let's just go into one of those beautiful satin stitches that you have in the machine. There are plenty to go around, so just play with them. So let's say if I want to do this design, so we have the length that's already been set, and you have the width, and you can, there's no way to play with positioning. Okay, I would have to find a stitch. There is one where you can play with the density, and I'm just, because I'm live, I should have checked before I started, but you can go and play with the densities. There's a toggle with the length. Usually when you see a toggle, that means that you can play with the density. It's kind of playing with the length, but it just allows you to have less stitch in that same area. So if you are using a very thin thread, you're going to want to increase the density. And if you're using a 30 weight thread, then you're probably going to want to lower the density. So again, my apologies. We're live. I should have checked to see which one had that toggle, but I'm sure it's time for you to play with your machine. I mean, that's the other thing. How many of you have actually done a test? Just take a piece of fabric with stabilizer underneath and just go through all of the different satin stitches that you have on your machine. Do that and see what they look like and how you can play with them. That's one way for you to get more comfortable using your sewing machine. I've shown you most of my tricks in sewing mode. I want to do one last thing with you guys to show you how if you have an embroidery machine, you can actually really increase, make it easier for you, especially when you're doing those circles, because all of the curves are the most difficult to do, as I showed you. And however, when you have an embroidery machine, you can use Applique Creator. I have on the creative the FAFF icon too, the creative icon too. There is the applique, and so you can create your appliques directly onto the machine and stitch in place. So let me show you how to do that. So let's go here. I just need to find where I have put my hoop. So just give me 1 second. All right, so I have found the hoop. And so basically, I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to embroider it onto my fabric that is already pre-looped with also a stabilizer underneath. You always need to have a stabilizer just to make sure that everything stays nice and crisp. One thing that I'm also going to do is I'm going to remove my open toe foot and replace it with that 16 spring foot. I just, again, have to find that one. And always in the tray, so it's easy to find. So let's just pop it back in here. Now let's probably, I'm to change the view of that here so you can see just a little bit better. So basically, I'm gonna unscrew the screw that's in the back here so that this can pop into the back here. And I'm going to make sure that my needle is up at first to make sure that this metal piece can go underneath. And I'm going to push of course you can't see it at that angle, but this plastic grating needs to be behind the screw that's holding the needle. And so then you can snap it in. Once it's snapped in, you can see it here. It's snapped in on the ankle of the foot right here. So then we can really screw this back in so that it holds the 60 spring foot in place and everything stays nice. I am going to put my machine in embroidery mode. All right. And I'm also, in a perfect world, going to change that stitch plate to the single hole stitch plate. If you want to make sure that you have a nice, crisp embroidery, you are going to be needing to put this plate on the single stitch plate onto your embroidery unit. All right. So here we go. Now this is in place. I have here, I am now in the embroidery section, and in the bottom right here, you guys can see this. Oops. So you have Shape Creator and Applique Creator. So I am going to select the Applique Creator. And this is where the magic begins. So you have the possibility to create several shapes and even text. So if you see on the right hand side, you have text that is right here. I'm going to use a shape. Like I said, I want a basic shape. I'm going to use the circle. And there's not a, so let me just close the, and here is the circle. I want to edit the applique. And so the first thing, I want to reduce its size. Now I'm going to measure my little circle to see the size that I need it to be. And so if I am actually, here's my tray. There's a ruler on the tray, the regular tray, sewing tray. So I'm simply using that ruler, and it's actually, I would say 50 millimeter. So again, I should have done my homework before. And so this is what it would look like. And I'm going to, you could go here and it's an autofill. You have lots of different options of different satin stitches that you could use. So I'm just going to select the first one right here. I'm going to close it. So there's my circle and I'm going to select OK. So the machine knows that it's an applique. I'm going to go into my hoop options and select the 120 by 120 hoop. And so here we see it in on ready to go. So I'm just going to go into stitch out. Always review everything here. Make sure that it's to your liking and go on to stitch out mode. And we are going to attach the hoop that is 120 by 120, and the magic can begin. So again, I always love to use ghost mode. So let me talk about it. I'm going to first of all take it out. So this is the embroidery as seen on the screen. I used to feel very intimidated when I started embroidering, not really sure what it was going to do. And I found the ghost mode is actually, it grays out everything that is not being stitched out, and you only see the stitch that is going to happen. So right now it's a straight stitch all around, and it's actually going to show you where to put the applique piece. All right, so that's what's wonderful about PFAFF machines with the applique creator. Every time that you create a new applique using the applique creator in the embroidery unit, the machine knows that it needs to do 3 different stitch outs. One of them to position so you know where to put your fabric. The second one to hold it down in place so you can cut around all of the excess fabric. And then the last thing is going to be that satin stitch to hold your stitch down. So that's what's really wonderful. And now that you have the ghost mode, you can actually clearly see what is the next step. So I'm just going to press start, and it's going to start doing the first stitch out all around so that we know where to go. So here is, oh, sorry. So that's really quick. And so the next step, it's telling me applique 2 second stitch. So it's saying to change thread, but you're not really changing thread. Okay, it's just telling you there's a command, you need to do something. So don't think you need to change the thread. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here, and in the hoop option, I like to put it in trim position. So it moves my hoop out of the center so I can go and add my applique. And well, not, yeah, I mean, I have a circle already set. You could have put in a square. So I'm actually, it's pretty bang on. I did a good measurement. I'm going to go put it back into current stitch mode. I'm going to close this out so we can see where it's going. And now it's going to do the second piece, which is hold it in place. Now, my square has stimacine 2 underneath, so it's sticking to the background fabric. If I would have had just a plain square or something that's not too sticky, then there is a trick. I love to use my stiletto and tweezers, and I will hold it in place. And did you know that when you have a PFAFF machine, you can actually use your foot pedal to do the embroidery? You don't necessarily have to press start and let the machine do everything. You can control the speed at which you're doing the embroidery. So I am going to here go and use the foot pedal and control the area just to make sure that it's holding because it's really tight in place. So you see how I am not afraid. I'm just going as fast as I want and just securing my fabric in place with my stiletto and my tweezers. Okay, so now I'm liking it. I can just press start on the top and it's going to finish appliquing the piece together. So just remember that you always have control. You can use the foot pedal when you are embroidering with a PFAFF sewing machine. So now we are at the last stage. So again, it's telling me that there's a command. This is where actually, yeah, because I already have pre-cut that circle. But if it would have been a square, I would have pulled out my hoop and I would have taken my ducks, my applique scissors that covered that. And so that section would actually be underneath the applique, and I would be able to cut it all around. This prevents you from accidentally cutting the wrong fabric, the background fabric. All right, so let me just show you here. I would, or better yet, here I would go into trim position. I would take the hoop out, and again, I would use those scissors to go and cut out all of the excess fabric. So this is what I would do there. So once the second section is done, I'm going to go back to current stitch position and close this, and now press start again so that the applique stitch can, the satin stitch, sorry, the satin stitch can now take place. And so let me show you with this candle. Sorry. See how the applique, it's honestly, it's a lot less of a hassle for me because I know I'm going to have a smooth finish all around. So for the circle, I tend to go into embroidery mode. But again, it really depends on the project you're doing. So showing this design, the applique was added using the Applique Creator, and I added another design inside, and that was just in the Shape Creator. So you can, again, take any design, any stitch out that you have in sewing mode and add it, and it's going to be sewing it into a circle. So if you're not too if you don't like sewing circles regularly, consider the embroidery machine to do all of your circular sewing stitches because you're going to have a nice and smooth edge every time. So that's my trick. And so here we go. It's almost done. And so that actually concludes all of my applique demo on how to have fun making appliques, having a nice satin stitch using either the sewing mode or the applique mode. Using you can use the Applique Creator on your embroidery machine, or you can also go into Creative embroidery software and start having fun with your creating your own embroideries there too, with the Elite membership that is available. So the design is finished. Okay, let's just take the hoop out so we can show you just how nice that design is. So let's just go back here and see how nice the circle looks. How the satin applique is just really nicely, it's just really neat. So again, like I was saying, in comparison to this design, which it's not bad, but I mean, if you can have an embroidery design, a embroidery machine doing it for you, that's always better. And so that concludes our class for today, how to do the satin stitch for your appliques. And I hope you've enjoyed it. And thank you again for being here, and happy stitching.